It's you. It's me. It's YDT, episode 216 of The Mortals, and we've got some work to do. This is a show which pulls back the curtain and takes down walls brick by brick and exposes the hearts of those caring for those you love most. I'm drinking tea, sweetie. Not sweet tea, but I'm drinking hot tea. Hot tea with some honey. All of that rhymed. It's local honey. Don't get confused, ladies and gentlemen, by, oh, my allergies are still bothering me, and I take a spoon of honey all the time. No, you don't. You take a spoon of honey if you go to like Costco and get Brazilian honey. That's not local unless you live in Brazil. You got to get your local. You got to go to your local beekeeper and the beehive, people. Gosh, what else am I going to have to teach you all? I had someone, honestly, the other day say, that doesn't work for me. Well, where do you get your honey? Costco. Well, respectfully speaking, that's not a local place for you. They live in the valley of Kentucky. That was my zipper of my pants. Not really, it was of my jacket. I'm glad you're here. You could be anywhere. Thank you very much. Also, I don't know, you should join the Mortals exclusive community right there. Community matters. First looks, first listens, music drops, things happen over there long before, if ever before anyone else sees it. What? Link is in the description and show notes. Click it. Join us in a partridge in a pear tree. It is 216. We've got a lot to talk about today. I've already talked about honey, and you, my honey, are here, and I'm grateful for you. All right, let's dive. Are you caught up on your shopping? Do you have this cloud looming over your head always? Are you finding ways to stay stressed over the holidays? Like, I got to get Sandra and my neighbor and my neighbor's aunt and uncle because they come every Sunday to drop off the newspaper for Sandra. I don't like them because they always scream obscenities, but I still got to don't buy a gift to someone for someone that you don't like. You can't buy their love. They don't like you probably either. You're not obligated to give gifts. You give gifts because you feel this desire to. You feel this want. I feel and witness people stressing, and maybe you're one of them, and about getting a gift for someone that you don't know well, like your little brother's girlfriend that he met 2 weeks ago, that they're just, it's only the sixth girlfriend he's brought over in the past 4 weeks. You get what I'm saying? I want you to realize that this holiday is not just about going into debt so that you do the obligatory gift exchange. No. If you give me anything, I'll tell you to send it back. I'm hot. I'll tell you to donate it to someone. I really don't want people to just be consumed by and distracted by that. And maybe that's you. And if it is, I hope that you can take a deep breath and take a pause and be like, wow, look at this season of togetherness, this season of, there's something different in the air here, and you cannot deny it, whether you believe or not. Maybe you don't celebrate this season, Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, or maybe faith, practicing faith is not something that you do, but I meet you here regardless, whether you have much or little, if you meditate or worship or none of the above. That is my promise, and I meet you here. But if it is something that you do celebrate, maybe the whole gift exchange thing resonates, but also maybe you're not celebrating, you can still attest to the fact that there is something different in the air. It is this season of reflection and counting of blessings. We just came out of the Thanksgiving season, and that's something that we should be thankful for all the time, mindful of, rather, this mindset of gratitude. I hope that you are grateful. I am in this season of immense gratitude. I can't really articulate what it's like to be in the world of creator that I'm in. You're constantly transitioning into, do I do this or do I, well, it's a internal battle, by the way, that I'm talking about. Do I do this content? And I've talked about it before. It's very repetitive and exhausting. I wonder when that conversation with self is going to go away. It's very weird. It's like one of the weirdest It's like one of the weirdest professions ever. Create. And apparently they are going to be banning TikTok, which is cool, but scary for me having 700 and however many thousand followers there. But you can follow me on YouTube at nathanmorrismusic, same name. I'm on all the socials. I would love it if you follow me on TikTok, but nowhere else. Follow me on YouTube because that's where we're going to continue to be posting content. I don't know what the band looks like, and my numbers don't represent me. And I am me, but who am I? That's a song lyric. I always like that song. I was just talking about how it's this exhausting story on repeat that I need to stop. And maybe this resonates as well. But I am very grateful nonetheless. And I've been diving in and leaning into me more so than I have in a really long time. I sing, I dance, I'm a mortician, I'm a funeral director, I'm a dad. Speaking of, I had an awesome time with the kids this past weekend. We ran around, we played, what's it called? Kerplunk? Is that the word? Where it's like, it's this long tube, it's upright, and then it's the cylinder's clear, and you put all those little, looks like almost tiny little chopsticks through those holes, right? And then you crisscross them until you run out, and then you drop all the marbles on the top. And then each person pulls a chopstick out. So I had Bear 4, Navy 6, me, Everett, Anderson. We were all playing. It was a disaster. And then Navy, of course, wants to play Monopoly again. Monopoly. He's something else. But it was a really good time. Ran around, wrestled with the oldest two. It was super fun. I really enjoy it. It's so fun. I don't talk much about it for reasons I won't really go into, but there's also this element of, and someone hit the nail on the head during a recent TikTok live. They said, I have to remember that creators have lives outside of what I see, because you see and we fill in the blanks, right? So in your head, you're like, oh, this is all they do. When in all reality, that's not the case. Even people who know me fall victim to that, and they forget that, oh, wow, this guy has other things that he does, and I am a dad. But I also do it for a protection thing. I mean, I do show and share some photos from time to time and some videos, but not in depth. I have to be mindful of and careful about that. People are just, can't be too careful. But I do like it when I get the opportunity to meet awesome people, and it's one of my favorite things. So if you see me out, please come say hello. I love it. It just happened the other day. I got a big old handshake at Lowe's. It was really cool. It always happens at the home improvement stores. Very cool how that happens. Home Depot, Lowe's. Hey, guy, what's up? No, it was very helpful. Thank you very much. And Lowe's, you got a good one there. But this is a season of gratitude. I hope you're thankful for and excited about. I've got some announcements that are going to be coming out really, really soon. Some of the mortals, not some of, but mortals know of. And I'll be announcing that sooner than later. And if you want to join the mortals again, link is in the show notes. But before we dive in, of course, it would behoove me to say that if you are in the funeral profession and you find yourself listening to this podcast, thank you very much. But also click in the description. I need your help. And I've opened up 20 spots. We're going to be doing something really incredible, building something. If you're inclusive, kind, compassionate, respectful, give a shit about providing exceptional and not something so templatized. I mean, the profession's changing. Click that link and then fill out the form there. I would love to communicate and connect with you. It is the time. 3 random facts time, duh. 3 random facts brought to you by Descript. You should start a podcast if you want to. Click the link in the show notes to get started. You don't have to have all the fancy shit. You don't. I mean, I have a cool mic and cool setup. I'm not going to lie, but I didn't always have it. So if you don't know what you're doing, but you want to sound and look like you do, yeah, there you go. All right, fact number 1, the Christmas truce of 1914. These are all true, very random facts, and we're going to lean in towards the holiday and Christmas season with these. Our first fact, it takes us back to a cold December during World War I in the trenches of the Western Front. Picture this. It's Christmas Eve, 1914. The war has raged for months, leaving devastation in its wake. Yet, amidst the chaos, something extraordinary happens. British and German soldiers entrenched on opposite sides of no man's land begin to hear faint melodies carried through the cold night air. It's Silent Night, and it's being sung in German. The British soldiers, they respond with their own carols, and soon voices unite across enemy lines in a moment of shared humanity. By morning, soldiers emerge cautiously from their trenches, unarmed, to exchange greetings. They share small gifts, chocolates, cigarettes, and even buttons from their uniforms. Some accounts even mention impromptu soccer matches in the muddy battlefield. For a brief moment, the war pauses and peace prevails. This Christmas truce wasn't sanctioned by military commanders. It was a spontaneous act of goodwill. While the war resumed the following day, this event reminds us of the resilience of the human spirit and the power of connection even in the darkest times. You cannot tell me that something magnificent is not in the air. In 1914, people who didn't speak the same language, people who maybe didn't even understand the words, but they heard the melody, and the melody was that of Silent Night from those on the English side, and maybe you had Buddhists, and maybe you had Mennonites, and people who were Pentecostal, maybe you had people who were atheists or agnostic, but they still came up, felt safe to do, and they gathered and created community because of the season. That's pretty cool. That's fact number 1. And fact number 2 for this 3 random facts, the legend of the Yule ghost, like Yule log. Now, we're going to go to Scandinavia for this holiday tradition that's more mythical. Meet the Yule goat, a fascinating figure that has evolved over centuries in Nordic culture. Originally, this goat was a pagan symbol of fertility and strength associated with Thor's goat-driven chariot in Norse mythology. Thor, remember like Thor if you watch the movies? I've never seen them. Don't judge me. Fast forward to 17th century, the Yule goat, it takes on this festive twist. In Swedish folklore, the goat would visit homes during Christmas delivering gifts. It'd be like, you're bad! A precursor to Santa Claus. Sometimes someone in the family would even dress up as a goat to entertain the guests. Wow. Could you imagine if you went and sat on the goat's lap? That'd be fun. Today, the most famous Yule goat is Galvel goat? Giant straw sculpture erected annually in Sweden, this particular town. But there's a kicker to it because this goat has become an accidental fire starter, quite literally. Since its first appearance in 1966, it's been burned down by pranksters. I just spit over 30 times. Despite this, the town rebuilds it every single year, making the goat a quirky symbol of holiday resilience. So next time you spot this goat ornament, if you've seen one, remember that the centuries of history and perhaps the light of fire, responsibly, of course. Could you imagine you like start this awesome tradition and you're so proud of it and every year it gets burned down, but you keep doing it. It's kind of like a goose. You wreck a goose nest, they're like, screw you, but they put the goose nest back up. In fact, number 3 on our 3 random facts for today's episode 216, the strange origin of candy canes. Candy canes, candy corn, and syrup. Finally, all right. The story behind one of the season's most iconic treats is the candy cane. You've probably, of course you know what a candy cane is. That's the dumb. You've probably heard of a candy cane is what I was about to ask. The candy cane, it dates back to 1670 in Cologne, Germany, where a choir master needed a clever way to keep restless children quiet during long nativity services. So sweet sugar sticks were the solution. To tie the treat into the religious theme, he bent them into the shape of a shepherd's crook, representing the shepherds in the Christmas story. The familiar red and white stripes did not appear until much later in the 19th century. Some people say the red symbolizes the blood of Christ, while the white represents his holy purity. Regardless, the candy cane has become synonymous for Christmas and a sugar reminder of both faith and fun. That is your 3rd and final random fact for this episode. 3 random facts brought to you by the Yule goat. That's what I want to be for Halloween next year, is the Yule goat. That's amazing. Okay, we're going to get a little colder because it's cold. How's the weather been where you are? I know I'm being old, but it's been really weird. It got really cold. It snowed a few times, just dusting, but I wonder if that's a foreshadowing of what's to come in in the winter. Bring it on. Bring all the snow. All of it. All the snow. Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about spooky story stuff now. Of course, because that's what this is. This is spooky story time. Well, it's not yet spooky story time. No, I'm just kidding. It is spooky story time. Okay, we're going to talk about the haunting of the Whaley House. So Whale, Y. Whale spelled Y. The Whaley House, located in the heart of Old Town San Diego, is known as one of the most haunted homes in America. And every single episode, every single haunted story, Jeremy, why do they do that? Every one of them is the most haunted. When we write these out and like I'm reading them, it says, this is the most haunted. And I'm like typing it. It's on the teleprompter. I'm reading it. But really, I guess for the shock factor. Anyway, apparently, this is the most haunted house in America. It was built in 1857 by Thomas Whaley. This stately Greek revival home was more than just a residence for him. It served as a general store, a courthouse, and even a theater since it's being built. But its story is steeped in tragedy. Of course, it is. Before the house was even constructed, the land it sits on was the site of San Diego's first public gallows. One of the most infamous executions there was of Yankee Jim Robinson, a convicted thief who was hanged in 1852. Now, I want to pause this entire spooky story time because it reminded me, and I think that you'll find this very interesting. My late grandmother, her mother, so my great-grandmother, died when she was just 5 years old. Now, my late grandmother went and lived at a convent during the summer. She went to school at an all-girls Catholic school, but during the summers was living in the convent because her brothers were working the farm. It's pretty common, apparently. And it wasn't until she was about 12 years old, maybe 14. I know that's a big difference, but her father, my great-grandfather, remarried a woman. Now, the woman he remarried was previously married as well to the city, the Owensboro's sheriff. Back then, the sheriff, if they died, which he had, the wife would take over the duties as sheriff. And you can look this up. The last public hanging in the United States of America was carried out by my step-great-grandmother. A man was tried and convicted of a crime, and he was hanged in Owensboro, Kentucky, in downtown Owensboro, Kentucky. She fell into this role and responsibility of having to oversee this public hanging, and 80 or more thousand people came from all across the United States of America. And that is not something necessarily that I am proud of, or obviously it's history and something that I didn't directly do, nor, justice system back then was very unique and interesting. But the fact that the history ties the last public hanging, which we're talking about someone being hanged in this spooky story, I just wanted to share that. The more you know. Okay, we'll go back to the spooky story time, but I find that very fascinating for so many reasons. My grandmother essentially becomes an orphan, very lightly stating, because she has a father who loves her. Her father is tending to the land. Her brothers are tending to the land. We're much older than her. She lives at a convent and goes to school, and then summertime, same thing. And then finally, she loved her stepmother, by the way. And my step-great-grandmother is part of that. Pretty wild. Okay. The infamous execution, Jim Robinson, he was a convicted thief, 1852. That happened. Owensboro, it was early 30s, maybe. I have to check that out. I'm not sure. Okay. Tom Whaley was unfazed by this gruesome history, purchased the land just a few years later, and built his dream home on the land where this public hanging took place in 1852. Unfortunately, the Whaley family faced relentless misfortune. The most heartbreaking story is that of Thomas's daughter, Violet, who suffered a failed marriage and took her own life in 1885. Now, if you think back on previous episodes where I'm sharing spooky stories, isn't that a common theme that is a part of these homes across the country? The history is just riddled with family plagues of illness or sadness and grief, and these people within the family in their lives. We should go back and listen to previous episodes. And speaking of, I mean, we're at episode 216. This is amazing. We've been doing this show for so long. I like this stuff. It's really, really interesting. She took her life in 1885. Her spirit is said to linger in the home. Her sadness palpable to visitors. Energy. Over the years, guests and staff have reported countless paranormal occurrences, heavy footsteps echoing through empty halls, believed to be Yankee Jim, sightings of a woman in a long dress near the parlor, thought to be Anna Whaley, Thomas's wife, and sudden, unexplainable chills. One particularly eerie room is the old courtroom, where people have fainted or felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Paranormal investigators often capture strange sounds and images, further cementing the house's haunted reputation. Today, the Whaley House operates as this museum, and it offers daytime tours and nighttime ghost hunts. It's a popular tourist attraction, but visitors often leave with more than they bargained for, a lingering sense of being watched or unexplained photos of shadowy figures. So if you ever find yourself in San Diego, would you go there? I would love to hear it. I know, Joe, you would. I know there'd be a number of you who probably would. That is the ghost story of the Whaley House, and I shared at nathanmorrismusic a ghost experience or energy experience. And if you are new to this podcast, I'm Nathan, I'm a musician and mortician. Spent 13 years in the funeral profession, still licensed, still excited about the profession and what it does and affords and offers you an opportunity to celebrate, gather, grieve, remember, honor people that you love more than anything, and people you are deserving to be celebrated. It's important. It's important for you to recognize that. Until I breathe my last breath, I want to spend my days and nights making sure that I at least remind you of it. And I hope that one day it'll hit you like a ton of bricks that it's like, oh, okay, maybe I am good enough. I am good enough. I hope that's where you are right now. And I know a number of you have reached out to say that you have experienced this massive growth. And that's cool to grow with you in that regard. But as a funeral professional, you're experiencing so many different families, family dynamics, and whether people celebrate and believe in a faith. But my faith teaches me that absolutely we grow up, we grow old, and we're put here to love and serve, and hopefully we earn eternal life, and then our eternal reward would be that of heaven, which is perfection, which is what I believe to be a place of constant worship. And they even go as far as talking about what's called a holy death. And maybe you've experienced seeing someone pass away, and you know how that can seem if you are on the outside and not actually physically experiencing that process of dying. And hospice does an incredible job with this small book that explains the process of dying. And I've never seen someone die, which is absolutely wild to think about, because I've seen so many deceased people, and I've seen stages of death. There's been obviously times where I'm in a room talking to the family, and there's what's called the death rattle, and that means that there's a closeness to death, but they weren't there yet. And death rattles can last moments or they can last days, and nonetheless, I've never seen anyone die. But I do know in life, people get these feelings of comfort or discomfort by people. You have people that you know right now in your life that you don't enjoy necessarily being around. You don't like being around them because they make you feel a certain way, and that's real. That's a very real feeling that you don't want to discard. It's important, and that's how we actually stay safe too. If you think about it, it's obviously part of this fight or flight thing. You're not going to walk into a room with a bunch of, I'm going to say men, but people that make you feel icky, because that makes you feel unsafe, and we obviously want to take care of and protect ourselves. Okay. But the same thing happens, I know and recognize, in death. After someone dies, when you go to the location of their death. And I've been to numerous bedsides of loved ones. Some, there's a sense of peace. Some, there is a sense of unease and discomfort. And it's not a judgment on my part. I'm not judging. How I feel is how I feel. And that's not something that someone can argue with me or diminish. But my feelings are mine as yours are yours. But if you know what I'm talking about, it doesn't mean that I don't do a good job of caring for them. But there are people that when they died, there's not this necessarily warm and fuzzy feeling like there was at my grandmother's bedside. And it's not because she was my grandmother, but there was this sense of peace and comfort. Okay. I wanted to give that backstory to paint the picture so that you kind of understood the setting. But I shared this story, and I don't share many stories because the beautiful thing and the cool thing about paranormal is that we're all intrigued by it, because we as people, we have to know why, what, when, where, how, and when we don't, we fill in the blanks. And paranormal is this thing, it's the unknown, a lot of it. And we got to figure it out. And that's what the intrigue is. Even if you don't believe it, you still are just fixated on it because you're like, well, that happened because of this. It's not something you're like, oh, I don't believe it, I'm not going to talk about it or think about it or want to hear a good spooky story. We're all like, tell me a spooky story. But this in particular was a very interesting one. I lived above a funeral home, of course. I've talked about it before. But after moving out of the funeral home itself, that space, of course, was utilized as office space. And the media company that I had started with my friend Drew was where our media company, Wonder Boy, was. And the offices were upstairs. Upstairs, they were operating the company. And then, of course, there's a kitchen. And in the kitchen is where they wouldn't be there yet, or they'd be at a meeting, and I would run in there and open all the cabinets, all the drawers, the cabinets, you know, where the cups are and plates, and sometimes even pull the cups out, pull the forks out, just very obnoxiously. Picture Vanna White having to touch the letters to turn them on, but having to shut all the cabinets and drawers. It was just a thing I thought was funny. I thought it was a funny thing. And I would do that from time to time. Now, I did that with Drew. Okay, it was just our little bit. And one night in particular, I go to my older brother Aaron's house, and we're watching a show, probably How I Met Your Mother. I would go there and we'd watch shows like that, or Friends reruns for 100 million times, and we'd hang out. It was just a cool thing for my brother and I to do. And this night in particular, after I had left, Aaron went to bed, and the next day I get a text message and then a phone call. Aaron, in the middle of the night, this particular night, comes out because he hears all this ruckus in the kitchen. And he goes out and he looks in the kitchen. Now, the kitchen is, you can come in the front door, walk down, and then you can enter the kitchen from, walk to the left, walk through the kitchen, and get to the other side of the house. So there's two, like, ways into the kitchen, if that makes sense. And he looks in the kitchen, every cabinet, every drawer is opened, cups are on the floor, forks, knives sprawled out everywhere. He says, that's what happened. And I'm like, and I told him about my joke that I did with Drew. And he said, you did this? And I absolutely did not do it, because I went home and went to bed. Now, my brother works swing shift, so it was a schedule where he was staying up super late to fall asleep late morning so that he could sleep until he had to be at work in the afternoon at 6 p.m. So anyway, he was up. So I didn't sneak back at 1 a.m. Dude was awake, right? And we began to talk about that and realized that maybe something or someone followed me, and stuff would happen after that moment, after that incident. That incident didn't happen again, but other things would happen, and it would always be after I had come over from the funeral home, which is very interesting. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any experiences similar to that? Do you have anything that has happened to you that you feel you can relate to? Because I love that stuff. I'm intrigued by it. I think it's very interesting. Maybe they were attracted to, maybe they were interested in, maybe they felt safe with me. I only recall one time, as far as walking through the funeral home, where we had loved ones in each of the chapels and visitation areas when I lived above this location. Only one time walking through there, making sure candles are blown out, all the lights are off. Yeah, it's creepy. It is creepy. And there were people that, there was one person that I walked in. I can picture what he was wearing, can picture the color of his casket, and I had this sense of like, I don't want the word to be too wrong, but I don't mean any disrespect, but it felt icky, super icky. I wanted to get out of there quick. So that's your spooky story from a personal standpoint. And of course, this podcast, I love your messages and comments on all of the socials. And I encourage you to please follow me there. Follow me wherever it is that you find yourself. And I encourage right now on YouTube at nathanmorrismusic, but leave a comment. I read them. Your interactions mean so much to me. Leave a positive review on whatever listening platform you listen to this podcast, and everything that you listen to is also able to be seen on YouTube. But I want to share, I get really cool messages, and I screenshot a lot of them. And this one was really cool, and I want to share it. This individual writes, "Hi friend, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to pop in and say thank you. Last year on this day, you made a video, and I wanted to let you know I passed the mortuary science program. I now have my license. Thank you for being such a strong influence in those who are wary about entering this field. Thank you for being a role model and positive influence. I know that you have gone through some horrible times, and music has brought you back to wholeness. I love this for you. Keep rocking out. I'm loving every single minute of it." That is awesome. The profession is filled with some incredible people. It really is. It's filled with kind, compassionate, loving people. And I love that. It's a great profession. It really is. And I get messages like that all the time. And I, not for a second, overlook them. Like, not overlook them in the sense of not read them, because I try to get to all them, but overlook them in the sense of not just reflect on how you didn't have to write it. Your words don't overlook them. Like, you took the time, you shared your thoughts, you shared meaningful and kind, compassionate thoughts that I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge. It's important for me to not overlook them, I guess. I always feel like I'm just me. Like, I am just me. I'm Nathan. And I know that there are people that probably, I have people that if I saw them, I'd be like, whoa. And the thought of someone being like that toward me is just mind blowing, because I'm just me. I'm a goof. I say stupid stuff. Like stupid as in like silly, but stupid as in like dumb, not smart. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I screw up. And, obviously a lot of the things may have, a lot of things that have happened in my life, especially in my personal life, within my personal familial circle. People have erred. People literally have crucified, and you've maybe experienced it too, right? I don't know where I was going with that. I think when you can get to a point, when you're to the point where you don't, like, there's nothing else that someone can weaponize you against you, like, who gives a shit? Maybe it was a moment of, and one that you have absolutely reflected upon, forgiven yourself, acknowledged, asked for forgiveness, attempted to right, maybe it was infidelity, or maybe it was just being disconnected with maybe you, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other things, but people are always quick to use things that have happened in one's past as an opportunity to, as like a weapon, like it's going to hurt you if it's brought up again. It's like, what else? And I think that for you too, if you can get to this place where, oh, I hope that they don't quote unquote find this out about me, or because people, regardless, it is not your responsibility to make people's mindset thoughts of you and maybe what may or may not have happened, or definitely what didn't happen, because people are literally going to, trust me, say whatever they want about you. I cannot tell you that enough. And it took me a long time, but here I sit, and I was sharing all that because I was telling you, maybe I am somebody that you're like, oh, wow, but I am flawed and I am not perfect, and I do my best. And I hope that that's what you do as well. But if you can show up for your fucking self every day and be like, you know what? I have in my life not been 100%, but I don't want you, nor will I ever serve a perpetual penance. Especially will I never serve a penance for something that I didn't do. So there's a couple of lessons there. My point is like, be unapologetically you. If you're stupid, awesome. I'm dumb. I'm a goof. Who cares? It's pretty fun to like not know everything because it's endearing and it's humorous. And also, I'm flawed in the sense of I've made mistakes and you've made mistakes. And then he without sin cast the first stone. And the moment that you can sit up in the morning and not give a shit what people think about you, and this, but still be a kind human. Obviously, I'm not saying go out and be like, yeah, bah humbug, elbow drop, punch, throat punch, kick. Being a good human still, because people are gonna say whatever they want. And when you can live and find that sweet spot, that's really, really living. But it's wild to think that because of, what I've experienced and the challenges that I've experienced, or maybe the fuck ups that I've had, or the fuck ups that weren't had but were said to had, but you all still show up, and you still, for some odd weird reason, think I'm worthy of that. And thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And that's a rambling 216 for sure. I think the things that I say, I feel, and I'm very confident in the fact that they were supposed to be said. Maybe it was you that was supposed to hear it. Maybe it was somebody that's listening on another device, but the fact that I say it, I no longer hold back, because it's supposed to be heard by somebody. And I want you, whoever's supposed to hear that, to hear that. And I'm grateful for you being here with me on this episode 216. Be sure to click the link in the show notes. Join the Mortals, please. I would appreciate it. It really helps me because you're able to be a part of this community, and it monetarily, of course, blesses me as well. Speaking of, we're doing a new thing. If you want to contribute and donate to the continued efforts of, we're going to link the Venmo right there in the show notes as well, because maybe you feel like giving, and that's awesome. And let me know also, should I stream more, like live stream more? We're thinking about it. We're considering it. We're starting to build some stuff out just to consider. I love watching T-Pain. Okay, I've talked enough. Get back to your whatever it is that you're doing. You love far more than you could ever know. This is episode 216 of The Mortals. Share this episode with a friend, or share the podcast itself with a friend. We're gonna keep rolling. And until next time, don't buy anybody Christmas gifts. If you took anything from this episode, don't buy somebody a Christmas gift that you don't want to buy a Christmas gift for. That's not what this season is about. Okay, this episode's really over now. Okay, bye. Don't do it. 29.99% APR interest rate. Don't do it.